Hey folks, my name is Mo Amir and this is VANCOLOUR, British Columbia's bona fide culture and politics TV talk show. Tonight, let's discuss revelations from the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, or CSIS, that allege that the People's Republic of China has been meddling in Canadian elections for years, not only federally, but also in local elections, including here in the Vancouver area. We're going to kick things off with a former member of parliament and former mayor of Vancouver who dropped a bombshell on the front page of the Globe and Mail last week, believing that he was the target of Chinese government interference. He is Kennedy Stewart. Kennedy, always a pleasure to chat with you. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, I'm glad to.
So you got to explain this to me. In May 2022, you had a meeting with CSIS. This was actually publicized the next month. And now we know that in January 2022, CSIS actually had a report where they were talking about China's Consul-General, Tong Xiaoling, wanting to mobilize the Chinese diaspora or Chinese community here in Vancouver to get a new mayor to replace you. When I read all of this stuff in the Globe and Mail last week, my first reaction was, why are we talking about this now when all this stuff happened a year ago?
Yeah. Well, maybe I can, there's a couple of touch points that I've had with this story, and maybe I'll go from back to front. Sure. I had lost the election and moved on back to Simon Fraser. Very happy there. Great students, great faculty. But then the Globe and Mail, one of the editors contacted me and said, we have these CSIS documents that have been leaked, and you're all the way through them. And would you like to talk about it? So I said, yes, but only on background.
Okay.
And then he flew out, the editor flew out, and we met, and he was kind of reading me some quotes from what looked like transcripts. Like I thought, are these wiretaps or something? And yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay. So these are CSIS documents that the Globe Mail has access to, and I'm in them. And then they read me a couple of quotes just to see if these sounded right. And one was about how mad the Consul-General was at me and in these wiretaps or transcripts. And another was about communications the Consul-General was having with sitting councillors about this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
that seems inappropriate.
Way beyond inappropriate if it's true.
Yeah.
So anyway, I said I didn't really want to get involved, but then they asked me about this, so I just kind of talked about any other relationships I've had with the Consul-General, and that goes back to the May meeting. Actually, before that, maybe I'll go right back to the beginning.
Sure.
In 2018, I was elected mayor. In 2019, I actually had a decent relationship with the Chinese Consul-General here. I had meetings with them, met with the Canadian ambassador to China, as I'd meet with all kinds of consular folks. But our Canadian-Chinese relations really started to decline with the Huawei, the two Michaels, and when the Chinese government decided to threaten Michael Chong, who's a friend of mine, a conservative MP, who we've co-authored a book together, as well as Jenny Kwan, under threat of arrest, I said, that's enough. I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Sure,
so I cut off communications, and I didn't need to talk to them. So that was kind of that. I was very involved with the Taiwanese community, though, and was very excited to have a new friendship city agreement with Kaohsiung, which is a major Taiwanese city. I had been working toward this friendship agreement, and that apparently did not please the Chinese Consul-General. And although I had no contact with them, then, as you say, in May of 2022, CSIS contacted my office and said, "Can we meet?" I thought, well, that's weird. Like, I got a million other meetings to do. Why would I meet? So I took it, though, and it was about 2 hours. These two guys came in. One was a senior official. The other was from the China desk.
Okay.
And they showed me their badges, like they were officials. They're spies.
Yeah.
They said they had to find their badges. And that's how rare these meetings are.
Wow.
Because they hadn't used their badges in years and years and years, because they don't go outside of their offices, I guess. So anyway, my chief of staff, Neil Moncton, and I were there, and they started to brief us generally about what foreign interference looks like. And then asked us a ton of questions of, like, did we notice things? What was our relationship with the Consul-General?
So they were also trying to gather information.
Oh yeah, they were
just telling you or warning.
They
you
were.
or
Well, they
something.
weren't telling me anything.
Okay.
So like when we,
so they didn't show you any transcripts
No.
or anything that the Globe and Mail had
No.
ended up showing
No.
you. Okay.
No, they didn't. And when I asked questions, they wouldn't answer essentially.
okay.
So I asked questions like, "Why are you here?" Right? And they're like,
It's a fair question.
Well, and actually they were, because I did tell them, look, this is going to come out in my public calendar.
Yeah.
It's going to say Mayor meets CSIS. People are going to wonder about that. So what do I tell folks? And they told me that they had been collecting information, that they were running it up the chain and nobody was paying attention.
Right.
And that was it. Like I didn't really get much else they asked.
And not even clear on what that chain is, whether it's within CSIS or to the federal government.
I didn't even know these guys' last names. Like,
wow,
and,
really?
And
Okay.
no contact
That sounds like
information.
something out of a movie.
It totally is. There's no like number to call.
Yeah.
There's nothing. So they will contact you if they want to get back a hold of you.
So I guess my question then is, based on your firsthand experience and now putting together information that you got from the Globe and Mail in terms of these recordings or transcripts, what did you see or experience in terms of interference from the consulate or the Chinese government?
Well, I mean, so that's May 2022, the election's in October. And so I was just a busy bee doing what a hood ornament in any party does, is I'm out there doing meet and greets and talking to media. So I'm not really paying attention to what's going on the ground.
Okay.
So I told CSIS that I didn't really see any evidence other than very public attacks on me from the Consul-General, which I thought were totally inappropriate. This Consul-General was way off base. I was at public meetings where it would be me and, it'd be at the Float restaurant or something with a whole bunch of other officials. The police would be there and she would spend like 10 minutes attacking the prime minister.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Like, and I'm looking around thinking like, this is totally wrong. Like why this person would be kicked out of any other country if you did this.
So that is grounds for expulsion, like the federal government
I guess so. I mean, I'm not an expert in this area, but I can imagine if the Chinese ambassador went to a big function with the mayor of New York and then started to talk about how bad Donald Trump was, they'd be gone.
Right.
So there didn't seem to be, like, to me, that was like, we're just not paying attention to what's happening here. And that's probably what the CSIS meeting was about. But after that, I didn't really notice anything. I lost by a large margin myself, 35,000, 37,000 votes.
Do you believe that the Consul-General or other actors from the Chinese government were coordinating or mobilizing disinformation or misinformation against you?
They weren't happy with me. And I know that, and Jenny Kwan has told me this before, we started to get like uninvited to events. So if the Consul-General was there, we were not invited.
Right.
And so that really, and then I was starting to pick up, like I had some colleagues from the past warn me saying that, this is going to cause you a lot of trouble. But there was nothing I could really put my finger on. So in your intro where you say I dropped the bombshell, it wasn't really me. It was the Globe and Mail and CSIS.
Fair enough.
It wasn't like I was approaching people to say I've been wrong. I was just trying to explain any interactions or any times that I touched this and my thoughts. Yeah.
Right. So as you just conceded, you're not blaming this election interference on your election loss. And that's fair. But there might be some people who go, there's bad actors in every democratic process. In fact, another mayoral candidate, Mark Marison, he got in trouble for taking an illegal loan. There wasn't really many consequences as a result of that. But if the result of the election is unchanged and the result, still bared what it would have, is it still a big deal? Why should Canadians be concerned? Because it sounds like the institutions have withheld or withstood that interference.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it wasn't the first that the Consul-General would rather somebody else. The first thing the Globe and Mail told me, it was the second thing that there was active communication between city councillors and the Consul-General. That's what the Globe and Mail told me. That hasn't come out in any of the stories. I'm not sure if they've changed their mind or whatever, but that's what I was told.
Is there anything illegal about that?
Yeah, I would say that if you're using resources that are not reported to Elections British Columbia, that's illegal. You can't do that. Like if a labor union or a union says, if they start bringing in 100 people in buses and moving people to polls and not saying that these folks are being paid or that you're paying for the buses, that's all illegal.
And was this happening then?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, that's what, you do hear. You've always heard reports of this in nomination races.
Yeah.
And, and so I don't know. Like, I'm not CSIS. I'm not the RCMP. I was a mayor who was busy working an election. But when you have your spy agency leaking documents because nobody's paying attention, I think that you need to pay attention.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Really quickly, is this a matter for Elections BC, which administers local elections, or is this a matter for the federal government, since we're talking about a foreign nation and relationships with that country?
I would say everybody. I mean, I mean, there's enough here now, I think, and you've interviewed guests that have stories to tell, and for me, I hope that it's not true. I hope that the CSIS got it wrong. There's some big problem here that people have misinterpreted. But my suspicion is it isn't. And my suspicion is there's stuff going on here that needs to be looked at, and we need to be cautious. And that's, and I would do what I could to help, but that's all the information I have, right? And that's what I've said to the Globe. I've said to other media outlets, like, that's all I know. Yeah. And now it's over to you guys to figure out what's actually happening.
Well, not me.
Not you. Not you. But CSIS, the RCMP, whoever,
Sure.
National committees.
Kennedy, I appreciate your time tonight. I always love chatting with you, so thank you so much.
Great being here.
Absolutely. Folks, that was the former mayor of Vancouver, Kennedy Stewart. Now we're going to record some overtime with Kennedy to further discuss foreign interference, a recent defamation case that he faced, and his time in office.
People are treating it like I somehow went to the Globe and Mail with these things, and I didn't. Like, that there is a massive package of documents, which the Globe and Mail told me that I'm in them. So can we ask you about these parts of the transcripts and reports that have you in them, and what do you have to say? So, I mean, I think the sour grape stuff's inevitable, but it's just basically lazy reporting.
So find This Is VANCOLOUR wherever you listen to your podcast to listen to that. Now, after some business, a former Conservative member of Parliament recently claimed that not only was he targeted, but he actually lost his seat in 2021 because of Chinese election interference. Kenny Chu will draw on his firsthand experience as to whether or not Canada is taking foreign interference seriously enough.